On this episode, we talked to a former college coach that left it all behind to give back at the high school level and just be dad. My guest is Casey. His last name is Horny, and yes, we do talk about it. Growing up in a small town, making connections at Texas dance halls was inevitable. And as we reminisce about small town life, dance hall bands, and the cold call, where you got a girl's number and that meant dialing her house, hoping her parents weren't around, it becomes evident that those experiences shaped us into respectful men. This background serves as an example for our daughters and what to seek for in a partner. We also talk about, despite my attempts to avoid it, football, a challenge that Casey has faced ever since he became a coach. Let's jump in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Modern Good Podcast. I'm really excited for my guest tonight. We've known each other for quite a long time, and I wasn't going to bring this up, but I think you hooked up with one of my girlfriends. We can talk about it later.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I don't. Why would I care? Why would I care at this point? Anyways, my regular shout outs. Joe Andrade Media does all my cool pictures on the internet. Wish Pocket, that's Jason. That's why we sound so good. He's my audio guy. Thank you, Jason. No Names Originals. That's my guy, Jaron. Support local North Carolina artists. He's doing his thing out there. You can find him on Instagram at No Names Originals. Go Bubble. That's the Go Bubble app. That's the detailing service to you. And if you use the promo code Go Moderately, you get a discount. Lone Sun Decor, that's my guy Peyton. He has cool artwork on wood. I don't know how else to put it, but he does really cool. He does stickers and all this cool stuff. So check his stuff out. And then last but not least, Shiner Saloon, my guy David, aka Cupcake, provides food and beverages for the podcast. Thank you, David. I appreciate you. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please follow. It's very helpful. I appreciate it. Casey?
Yeah.
How's it going, man?
It's going great.
Yeah. It's good to see you, dude.
It's good to see you.
We had the unfortunate thing of last time I saw you was at a funeral.
Yeah.
But we really didn't kind of get to talk at all, right? So we've been catching up a lot, with everything. So, I have, I'm not even bullshitting on this. I have had this question forever.
Okay.
Because kind of basically when we were kind of hanging out was when you were getting out of high school into college and you went to UT and you were living off Red River and we'd go party at that apartment
Jefferson
and I would
Commons.
crash there.
Yeah.
Everybody was in and out of there.
Yeah.
And then random athletes would walk in. You're like, holy fuck, that's somebody on the football team, kind of stuff. So my question is, you went to school to be a lawyer. Is that right?
Initially, it morphed from being a lawyer, and then I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon.
Okay.
And
you
being
are,
a coach,
what is your current job?
I'm a high school football coach now.
Okay. But you have done way more than high school football. So really quickly, give kind of what you do. And then I just want you to go through your coaching history, just real quick, Texas, blah, 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 all the way down.
So I'm a high school football coach at Round Rock Westwood. I got my start in coaching as a student assistant coach at the University of Texas under Mac Brown. I did that for 2 years, and then I was a graduate assistant coach for 2 years under Mac Brown. Left there, became the secondary coach at Sam Houston State University in Huntsville.
Lumberjacks?
No, the Bearcats.
Oh, Bearcats.
Yeah, eat 'em up cats. Lumberjacks are that's their biggest rival.
It's SFA, right?
That's right, SFA. Yeah.
I partied there a couple times.
So left SFA. Coached 2 years at Trinity University in San Antonio. That's where my wife was going to med school, so kind of had to mesh that up with her. Left there, spent 1 year as a defensive coordinator at Texas State in San Marcos. I'm familiar. Yeah, you're familiar with that place. And then after that, I went to Baylor for 9 years, worked there. And then after Baylor, went back to UT Coached with Tom Herman there from 2017 to 2020. Spent 1 year at FIU in Miami with Butch Davis, and then came back, spent a spring at SMU, and then to get closer to family, moved back here to take a high school job.
So what high school you coach at right now?
Round Rock Westwood.
Okay, and what are they? The fighting?
The Warriors.
Warriors.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. You like it?
I do. It's been a unique change. Just dealing with, I got to teach a PE class, which was different. I've never taught except for a golf class at Trinity, which went well. But it's been fun to get around high school kids again and get around kind of the true kind of coaching aspect of it.
So I said I wasn't going to ask any football questions, but I have a feeling I'm probably going to ask a lot.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll just kind of start.
Fire away.
This is, I'm just curious. So, big differences between coaching college football and coaching high school football. Is there big differences?
There is. And I'd say the biggest difference I learned is college athletes, by the time they get to college, they have a lot of knowledge about the game, so you don't really have to water it down.
And is there not a lot of coaching per se?
There is still coaching. There's development, there's coaching, but the terminology of it, you're kind of starting on second base. When you coach high school kids, you're starting at home plate. You have to take everything down to the lowest common denominator and to the bare minimum and assume they know no football. And, if we got into the technical aspects of it is, I don't have to teach a college athlete how to backpedal if they're a defensive back. They know how to do that. I'm just trying to fine tune that. When I'm coaching a high school athlete and I'm coaching a high school freshman, I have to teach that kid how to backpedal, So it's a lot more teaching and fundamental work in high school, whereas college is more development and schematics.
Do y'all have Madden in the building? Do y'all have a TV with Madden to teach them how to play football?
Well, they have it at home. We don't.
Are you ever shocked about how much they kind of know coming into high school football that maybe like you didn't know when you played because of like playing Madden?
No, I don't think, because it's a little different. I suck at Madden, by the way, which is hard to admit as a coach, but yeah. I suck.
Is it just the controls though?
It's because
do you understand what defense to run?
I don't think it's applicable because I will get in a defense that I know
will shut something down. Will
shut this offensive play down, and it doesn't. And my brother, when I would play against him, that would be the thing. I would be infuriated. I'd be like, I'm in cover 2 here.
There ain't no way.
There ain't no way you can run this route combination versus this coverage. He's like, well, I did. And there's nothing I can do about it. But they have a general knowledge, but that's what I was surprised about when I was coaching high school is how much, and I don't want to say dumb it down, but I had to water it down and then kind of start from bare bones. And then they absorb things pretty well. But that would be my biggest transition from college to high school is just to get to the basic fundamentals of football and then build from there.
So your oldest, you said is 16?
Oldest daughter is 16.
Does she go to the high school that you coach at?
She will this year. Yes.
How's she feeling about that? Having dad?
She's nervous. She's going to act like
she doesn't
know who I am. But it's.
You just happen to have the same last name.
We actually don't.
Oh, really?
We don't because, obviously, my last name is Horny. I don't know if that's posted or not. And my wife is a doctor. I did not want her to be Dr. Horny.
Yeah, that is kind of like.
So I didn't allow, but she kept her last name. And then I just said the same thing for our daughters.
Well, you know what? Like, so I have people fill out a form before they come on the podcast. Yeah. And I asked, what do you think people think the most interesting thing about you?
Yeah.
And the 2 things you put were football and my last name.
Yeah. That's what I get commented on the most.
I mean, and like, I'm not going to, obviously, like when we first met, when somebody has the last name Horny and you're like
it's jarring.
You're a high school kid, you know what I mean? So like, I was kind of always like, man, like if, when I get married, I do want my wife to take, I'm just kind of traditional like that. I want my wife to take my last name. But in your case, That would be the one kind of exception that I would probably make, because I wouldn't want my daughter to go around being like,
it's different for guys and girls. And like guys, it was kind of a badge of honor.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. Like growing up, nobody ever forgot who I was.
Nope.
Guys, it was never a negative connotation. It was almost like, it was joking, but in a respectful way. But with girls, I can see how that would be construed in a different way. So the discussion I had with my wife was, well, they're going to probably get married someday and they're going to change their name anyway. So why do I need to make them carry the last name Horny for, 22, 23 years and get ridiculed for it and then get married and change it anyway? If it's a boy, it would have been a different story. Like if I'd had a boy, I would have said, I'd like him to keep that name because I want him to carry it on. And he won't have to deal with the ridicule that girls do,
I think you should make a deal with your wife that when she retires, she has to now take, because then she won't be Dr. Horny anymore. She'll just be Mrs. Horny.
Well, she did take it for a while, and it was difficult. I think guys almost assumed that she was like a strippergram coming in there because she's very attractive and she's young. And then coming into the room, I mean, they probably thought like somebody's playing a joke on me. Dr. Horny, are you sure?
Right.
So, I had a concern with it. And, I'm traditionalist in a way, but I'm also progressive in a way that like I didn't mind. I mean, it's not her name, it's my name and I didn't mind.
Well, I mean, I could we agree? It's kind of a unique situation.
It is.
Compared to like most people.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't run around with like the last name Dick.
No.
Or whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever odd name.
I'll never forget at summer camp one year, some kid was like, man, that is an awesome last name. He goes, that would be like if my last name was Joe Sex. He's like, it's just awesome. And I was like, well, I guess I could look at it in a positive way, I guess.
Sure. So tell me about being a girl dad. What do I need to know? Tell me.
You know what? I think girls, they're so much easier when they're younger. I mean, just.
What do you mean?
Well, Jared having 3 boys and watching that whole
y'all got a whole different experience.
Yeah, boys are destructive when they're younger. I mean, you got to worry about stuff breaking in your house, getting stuff marked on the walls. Our girls were never that way. But emotionally, as they develop and get into, I think it's about 12 or 13, there's just a switch that flips that you become the not cool dad. And especially with girls, the relationship between the mother and daughter
get bad.
It's really strained.
Well, because but I think all that is like super normal.
Yeah.
Like I don't know about you. Okay, so like, are you? Well, that's a shitty question. Obviously, you're glad you had girls.
Yeah.
But do you think you even in maybe wanting to have boys or having a boy, do you think you prefer to have girls?
I think I do.
I do too.
Yeah. I've the experience
has been greater, right?
Has been
because you're not a girl.
Yeah, because I'm dealing with emotions I'd never dealt with. Because as a girl, they see things in a different perspective.
Does that make you a better dad?
I mean, I guess. I mean,
sorry, does that make you a better husband?
My wife would argue no. My daughters would probably say it makes me a better dad because I'm able to give the male perspective on things, especially when my daughter.
Do they listen to you when you tell them about pieces of shit dudes that are pieces of shit?
I think they do. My oldest does. When I talk to her about the boy experience, the dating experience, kind of how the boy views it versus the girl. I think she respects that opinion. Whether she follows it or not, that's a different story. But I think it has helped. And I thought about that because my wife and I, when we had our 3rd girl, she wanted to try again.
Was anybody shooting for a boy at the end of Joe?
I mean, I think my wife kind of wanted a boy.
Well, I mean, I think if you had 2 girls, it would be normal to go, like, it'd be cool to try out the other one.
Yeah. And I told her that. I was like, well, when we had 2 girls and she wanted to have a 3rd, I said, okay, this is it. Boy or girl, this is it. And we had another girl and she tried to entice me like, well, don't you want a boy? And everybody, ties it to me because, I'm involved in sports. Like, you want to have a boy so you can, do
all the boy things.
But all the girls do. Like my youngest loves soccer. She plays soccer. I'm able to do that with her. My oldest is a basketball player. She loves to play basketball. My middle child likes to do it all. So I'm still able to have that relationship with them. And I don't feel the pressure of them having to be good. Like, I feel like if you're a coach and you have a boy, if he sucks, that's on you, you know.
Deion Sanders is killing it, by the way.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he is.
His son's good.
And his son's just as good a promoter as he is.
Yeah.
So.
I saw some video the other day where like he bought like a Maybach or Maybach, yeah. And like Deion Sanders was like, shit wasn't even like this when I was in school. Deion Sanders had some shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He got hooked up.
Oh, yeah.
But like not like this.
He ranks his kids based on what they give him too.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you've seen that. Like, well, this guy gave me this gift. He's number one on my list right now.
Oh.
This other kid's not, you know.
He's the best.
But I mean, how could you not want to play for Deion?
Yeah.
You know, growing up, I mean, he was the guy, like baseball, you know, football, just his athleticism. I hated him when he was with the 49ers, but as soon as we got him on the Cowboys,
For sure.
I was like, this is the dude, you know?
Dude, I was a big Colorado Buffaloes fan in general, because like when I first started watching college football, Notre Dame and Colorado were like 1 and 2 all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I got into football watching Colorado football. And then at some point it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to go to school there and I'm an old man, so I'm not rooting for some team where I kind of didn't go to school. But like I was like, oh, it's kind of cool that they finally got like a coach and they're going to like kind of be on the map and make something and do something. That's cool that a school's finally going to kind of get back into it, you know?
Yeah, they needed that. I mean, I've always been a fan of Colorado as well, even back in the day with Eric Bieniemy and
love Eric Bieniemy
and all those players, the Bill McCartney era.
That's my wheelhouse.
And I always enjoyed watching them play. And then after being at that stadium and seeing the campus and seeing the atmosphere there.
It's cool, right?
I don't know how you couldn't get a recruit to come there.
Yeah.
And then now they've got a guy that's going to sell it. And what people don't give him credit for, you know, they call him Coach Prime and, you know, he's just a mouthpiece and things like that. He hired a great staff. I mean, he put together some NFL coaches. I mean, Mike Zimmer, who was the head coach of, you know, Minnesota Vikings and was a defensive coordinator for the Cowboys.
And Cincinnati.
Yeah, and Cincinnati. And he's an analyst there, you know, and he's got, you know, great offense. I know Sean Lewis. Sean Lewis was at Akron. He runs a Baylor style offense. You know, he came and visited us and worked for Dino Babers at Syracuse. So I think they're going to surprise some people. They're going to get recruits in, and I think they're actually going to do things with it. And really in college now with recruiting, like the head coach does not need to be an X's and O's guy. You know, some of those guys are, like Kirby Smart is a very good X's and O's guy, but they have to, 1, sell the program, 2, they got to hire a great staff, and then they got to delegate authority. And I think Deion has the ability to do that.
Okay. True or false? It's a true or false question. What Nick Saban is really good at is all of that shit. Mm-hmm. Like him as a coach, like he's a very smart coach, but he's better at putting together coordinators in a team, would you say? Or do you disagree?
True. I think he's a guy that's learned from his failures. You know, he was okay at Michigan State. You know, he was better at LSU with better players. And then he went to NFL and kind of didn't do so great at the Dolphins. But I think he's taken all those things and learned, you know, I'm going to hire a good staff. He's one of the best at organizing the structure of the program. And he talks about the process. Now, it doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't hurt that you've got 5-star athletes playing for you. He recruits very well, and he understands in college that's the lifeblood of your program. But I don't have firsthand knowledge. I've never worked for him, but people that have worked for him or that have visited the program says he's got a finger on every aspect of it, from graphics to recruiting to nutrition to the weight room. He's got his hand in everything.
But he hires the right people to execute, so you don't have to worry about it.
But
right?
he holds them accountable. It's not. He's not a guy that hires somebody and they just say, "Hey, do your thing. I'm not going to stand over you." Like, and that's what Bill Belichick does. Like he took that from Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick says, "I'm the head coach. I'm going to help out with the defense," but Bill Belichick knows everything about special teams that they're going to be running. He knows everything about offense and their offensive game plan for that week. And I think the head coach has got to be that guy that's got enough in each of those areas and understands it that he can monitor those things. Guys that just relinquish control sometimes, you hire guys that are good, but they don't complete your vision. And I think Nick Saban does a good job of having an idea of what he wants out of a program, hires people that are also kind of synonymous with that idea, but then he also holds them accountable for things they do.
All right. So I said I was going to ask you a bunch of football questions, but I'm going to ask you like two.
Yeah, shoot.
Okay. One, who was your favorite coach to like work under and why? And then the second one is, it could be like your favorite time or just what's been the most enjoyable experience you've had at any school doing anything that like, you're like, man, that was like just so cool.
Well, I mean, it's one and the same. My favorite guy I've ever worked for as a head coach is Art Browse.
Why?
I mean, I think he was a tremendous football mind and an outside the box thinker. He really put things into different perspective for me schematically, because a lot of what you see in college football is plug and play. You have a guy that is part of a system, and he takes that system as an assistant and he plugs it into a different. He doesn't invent anything himself. And Art was tremendous about, all right, what do we have personnel wise, and what can we invent schematically that can give them the best opportunity to succeed on the field. It wasn't like we're just going to run this because I saw this guy do it. He was always wanting us to think outside the box, and it was because he was a high school coach. Because I've learned
really quickly. So he was a high school coach and then got that job at Baylor?
No, he was a high school football coach. Mike Leach hired him as the running back coach at Texas Tech.
Okay.
He took that and got the Houston job.
Okay.
And Houston was like 0-10.
Okay.
Took them to a bowl game, took them to 10 wins, and then got the Baylor job.
Okay, got it.
And when we got to Baylor, I mean, it was in dire straits. I mean, they should not have been in the Big 12. I think they won like 2 conference games in like 4 years or something. Hadn't been to a bowl game in 16 years. And I can remember being at some doctor party with Karen and, you know, being a UT guy, we were talking about the Big 12, and it was about the time they were thinking about, you know, restructuring the Big 12. And I jumped up on a pedestal saying Baylor should not be in the Big 12. They've got no business being in there.
And you're at UT at this point?
I was at Sam Houston at the time. But being, you know, a UT grad and having been a graduate assistant coach there, I thought that program should not be in the Big 12. And then I got hired at Baylor. So I kind of had to swallow what I said. But seeing the state that the facilities were in, the type of players we had, and then watching him go in and flip that thing, I mean, it's one of the best coaching jobs and turnaround jobs that I can remember. And that was the best part about it for me, was being there for that. Like seeing that program go from a joke to winning back-to-back Big 12 championships and doing it in a fun way. Like Art was great with family. You know, our family was always around the office. My daughters love him. My wife loves him. We all were so close as a staff. Like we played golf together, went on vacations together, hung out together. You know, a lot of places like to say they're a family atmosphere. That place truly was. And he cared about you as a coach. Like he would, he never really raised his voice or ever got on kids or ever got on us as a staff. But I will say this. I've told guys the difference between working for him. If you were an assistant, a lot of times you don't want to screw up because you're scared for your job. You know, you don't want to mess up because you don't want to get fired. You don't want that head coach to think less of you and fire you on staff. For him, I didn't want to mess up because I didn't want to disappoint him. I mean, that's the kind of relationship you had with him as a coach. Like when you did something wrong, you felt bad because you let him down. And I said, that's the difference between working for a guy that you truly respect and just a guy that gives you a job. Right. So I'd say 2 in the same. My best guy I ever worked for was Art Browse, and then my best experience, because I spent 9 years there, was at Baylor. Okay, so how did he establish all that so fast? What do you think the key to his success was? Like to getting y'all to buy in, and like, because you talk about like you said, to not like want to lose your job, that you're letting someone down. Yeah. That's an emotional investment into that. So how did he get y'all so emotionally invested? Well, I think it's just the way he treated you. You know, what was your first interaction with him like? Well, I knew him prior to going to Baylor. Okay. I was a graduate assistant coach when Kendall, his son, played at Texas. And I'll tell you where it started. And this is an origin story that that I think back and it kind of was in the back of my mind. And when I worked for him, it kind of brought it to the front. I was a student assistant coach at Texas, and we had a football camp. And, football camps at Texas, you have 600-700 kids. And Coach Brown, divided the camp up into high school kids. And all the full-time assistants worked that camp along with high school coaches. And then there was a youth camp, which was, junior high kids, elementary school kids, still a lot of kids, but the focus wasn't there.
Right.
The focus was recruiting and coaching the high school kids. So the GAs...
Ain't nobody care about those young kids.
No. So the GAs get stuck with the junior high kids. So Tom Herman, myself, a guy named Oscar Giles, who also coached at Texas, and 2 other guys, we get stuck with the junior campers. And so, like a dumbass, I say, hey, I'll coach running backs and linebackers. That'll be the position I'll handle with these young kids. Well, it was right after Ricky Williams. So what do you think every kid wants to do?
Yeah, running back.
Play running back.
Yeah.
So I go through offensive drills, and they had 4 kids go to offensive line, probably about 50, 60 kids go with wide receivers, probably 50, 60 kids go with quarterbacks. And I had about 150, 200 kids lined up at running back. I've got to run drills with these kids by myself. So all right, we're going to work on handoff drills. So I get them in 2 lines, and I'm going right, left, wearing my ass out. And this coach walks up and says, hey, man, looks like you can use some help. I said, I would appreciate it. And so he took one line, I took the other, and, we worked through drills. And he asked me, okay, what do you want to do next? And I would tell him, and he would do it. And afterwards, I said, hey, man, I appreciate the help. My name's Casey Horny. He said, my name's Art Browse. He goes, I'm the head coach of Stephenville. And it blew me away because I knew who he was.
You did?
I knew he was because I remember when I was in high school opening the Victoria Advocate, and they had this article about how much high school coaches were getting paid, like the top 5 most well-paid high school coaches in the state of Texas. He was number 1 at Stephenville in 1993 or 94, making $85,000. And to me, $85,000,
like 85 comma, holy
00,
fuck.
and that's in 93, 94. And it blew my mind.
Yeah,
like that a high school coach can make that much money, and this guy must be damn good. And they were in a run of winning 4 state titles and whatnot. But that humility, because most high school coaches go to work that camp to hobnob with the college coaches and to talk to Coach Brown and shake Coach Brown's hand and try to get to the collegiate level. So they're trying to impress the college coaches. And he walked his ass down to the junior camp, saw a young coach struggling, and said, I'm going to help that guy out. And when through the years, I always kept in touch with him. We write back and forth. And then when he came down to visit Kendall, I would talk to him. And so when he got the Baylor job, my wife was trying to get a residency in Temple. And I called him and just said, I was defensive coordinator at Texas State at the time. And I said, I'm trying to get in that area. Do you have anything? He said, well, I've just hired all my staff, but I'm going to create a position for you. And so they created this quality control position and hired me for that. So I think that's where it was established for me of this guy is very humble and doesn't need to be. And, he respects me as a person and sees me as a person, not as an employee. And he treated everyone like that. Everyone from the janitor to whoever, he knew everybody's name, looked everybody in the eye, was very cordial, knew all my kids' names. Anytime the kids were in the office, he would always come in and say hello. Like a lot of head coaches don't want to mess with kids. That's a nuisance to them. But for him, it was welcomed. So I think that's where that relationship developed.
Well, 1, humility goes a long way, right? But 2, you always hear these types of stories, right? You always hear these stories about these people and the way they touch people and interact. And it goes back to that saying of people might not remember what you did, but how you treated them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And man, that shit's powerful. You know what I mean? It made an impression on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that he's and kind of fucked up that whole shit went down the way it did. And then, and that guy got kind of, burned at the stake for, maybe stuff that, you can't be everywhere all the time. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate.
Yeah. That's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah. I don't even feel like going into it, but you know what I mean? It sucks sometimes when, you know, somebody like of that caliber. But, you know, in some levels, he was probably the best person to handle something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he probably handled it with humility and grace. You know, if someone's going to handle it, it'd be him, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
Do you still talk to him?
We text back and forth,
Yeah.
and you know, he'll text, you know, congratulatory things, and you know, I'll hit him up and say, you know, what's up, how's everything going? And I'm in contact with his son and his son-in-law a lot more, but you know, I think he still lives in Lake LBJ and at Horseshoe Bay, and then I think he's been coaching overseas in Europe. They have like a semi-pro league, but he goes over there for a couple months and coaches, and he wins everywhere he goes. You know, he went over there and took that team to the championship, and then he went to high school for 2 years and took that team to the state championship. I mean, he's
Ted Lasso.
He is. I mean, he's Ted Lasso before Ted Lasso. He's not as goofy as Ted Lasso, but the player, like anybody that ever had played for the guy, loves him.
I mean, it's even the same thing on Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's Jason Sudeikis, and his humility is that character of who he is that everyone is just drawn to him.
Yeah.
And the way he kind of just sheds stuff off his back and moves forward and tries to process it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, he'll take, I mean, that's the thing. And like you said, you know, he handled that whole situation with grace and humility. You know, his probably character flaw and probably greatest attribute in the same is the willingness to take arrows for people. You know, he took care of so many kids and gave second chances to so many guys that nobody would give second chances to. And, you know, that's a lot like Ted Lasso is he's self-deprecating. You know, he takes all the blame when something goes wrong and deflects all the credit when something goes right. And those people, I think, are easy to respect. You know, people that when things go well, want the credit, you know, and seek it. And then when things go right, start pointing the finger at other people. Those are the type of people I'm not drawn to.
Well, I think people like that, you know that they don't need anything from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not taking the credit. I'm taking all the blame. I don't need anything from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think when it leaves you in a safe space with that person, you know, and again, like, you know, you hear these stories all the time, like, you know, the same idea of like how he treated, you know, everybody in the building and blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, and those stories are always great. Why don't we all act like that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I learned from him, you know, working for him and working on that staff is, and that coaching's a weird thing because you come up and you kind of become a creature of habit. You work for a guy, you see how it's done, and you think that's the way I got to be, you know. And I've worked for some guys that are hard on kids that just don't see the players. They see them more as, you know, commodities rather than people. And then I got around him and I was like, you know, this is the way I want to do it. You know, I want people that play for me and players that I'm around, I want them to enjoy themselves and have fun and have a positive experience when they leave this place. And one thing I noticed, I just went down to, it's called coaching school, but it's a big coaching convention for high school coaches, and a lot of college coaches go too, is there are a ton of former Baylor players that have gotten into coaching, and they all attribute it for playing for Coach Bry. It was such a positive experience for them that that's what they decided to do with their life. And no other program, like I don't see a lot of former Texas players ending up as coaches, or a lot of former Sam Houston players. Other places I work, I don't see those guys getting into coaching. But I mean, I ran into so many former Baylor players. They're like, hey, I'm coaching at this school or that school. And that's attributed to their experience. And like when you're around somebody that has that effect on you, you know, that's changes somebody's life path, you know?
Well, I was just thinking that like, okay, so like I'm a former athlete. Mm-hmm. What jobs can I have? I could be a coach. Mm-hmm. I could be an analyst. I could be a personal trainer. Like I'm doing something with my athletics, but he was always preparing those guys for their future because he knew that one of the jobs they would have is to be a coach. So if I'm a good coach, maybe they want to be a coach. It was almost like he was training to be coaches later by being a good example as a coach.
See, I think it was unintentional in a way, because really when you graduate from Baylor or UT, you know, we do have a lot of career pathways and a lot of networking functions that we give to the players that put them into more lucrative jobs in coaching.
Yeah, it's all about who you know. Right. Yeah, come on.
And a lot of those guys, I mean, they have the opportunities, being a former athlete, being a Baylor grad, to leave Baylor or leave UT and go work at some big law firm or work at some big real estate company or whatever their path is, coaching should not be in their, in their future.
Yeah.
And they have looked at it in a way which I think is even more amazing is there's a more lucrative path for me. But God, man, I had so much fun in my experience here as Baylor as a player. And, this coach was such a positive role model in my life that I want to have that effect on somebody. Because that's why I got into coaching in a lot of ways is because I enjoyed my high school coaches. I had some really good coaches in high school that made me believe in myself, and gave me a path to succeed, structure and everything. And it was because of the way they made me feel that made me think I want to have that effect on somebody. And not a lot of people approach a profession in that standpoint. They approach it from the standpoint of what is the best way to make money and what is, going to give me longevity in the future,
Well, a lot of people play the short game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like life is a fucking long time. Like, so you'd be better suited to play the long game because unless you're planning on living a short life, you're going to be around for a while, And I just think that, it's easier to play the short game than play the long game. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like,
what's funny is you think about certain jobs that you think you would enjoy. My wife hates it, but she gets
hates your job?
Well, she hates
how much time you spend away?
No, the effect on other people. So,
like y'all, like being fancy because you know people and stuff?
No, not that. So she's always around me and other coaches and other coaches' family. All we do is talk about football, and she gets annoyed with it. She's a doctor. She's very analytical, very intelligent. She's very well read. She reads about a book a week. I mean, and sometimes multiple books. She's got one on audio.
Oh, these people that like to learn.
She likes to learn. And so I'll never forget when we were kind of first married, she got to go to her first physician party. It was like a doctor party.
And you went with her?
And I went with her.
Okay.
And she made the comment in the car on the way over there, finally, you're going to get to go to a party and you're going to have to sit here and listen to all the discussions that I go through every day and the things that I'm interested in. I always go to your functions and have to listen to football. And so we get to the party and she introduces me to her boss. This is my husband, Casey. He's a coach at Sam Houston State. And then, boom, off and running football for the rest of the party. And it was almost like all the other doctors come over like, so how do you think Texas is going to do this year? How do you think so-and-so? And she left the party. She's like, we just can't escape it. She gets so frustrated that people are drawn to that. But people, I don't know, people are, especially men,
Well, you know what? They don't show doctors on TV, like having surgeries every Sunday. And you're like, holy fuck, did you see that brain surgery that doctor did? Like, I mean, like sports and shit's in their face. It's like 24/7. So, and like with dudes, I mean, like, and I don't know. I find it weird. Okay. So when I'm around a bunch of other like trainers, coaches and things like that, like life coaching and stuff like that, like a lot of times all they want to do is talk about like training and like all that stuff. And I would rather just talk about like regular life.
Yeah.
But like, I find it weird that like, when the bunch of football coaches get there, y'all continue to talk about football, that y'all wouldn't want to talk about like something else.
So if you're close, like my close friends and coaches.
Y'all talk about regular shit?
We do.
Okay.
We talk about family. Yeah. We talk about, other interests, music, things like that. That was one thing about Baylor. A lot of the guys that were around my age there, we're all music junkies. So talking about like what concert we're going to go to or a new guy somebody's listened to. When you're around general coaches, guys you don't know very well, then that's what you just deviate to. All right, let's talk about football, But it is interesting how that conversation always steers that way.
What kind of music you listen to?
I'm going to be born. I'm going to say I'm kind of eclectic. I like everything. I'm kind of interested.
That's great. But I have a follow-up question. That's why I'm getting to it. So my follow-up question is, I'm sure in a lot of these locker rooms, you have heard some crazy ass music, like, like playing songs that you don't like really know.
That is the thing. I do feel outdated because I will hear, the latest rap game, and I don't know who it is.
My question is, have you ever been in a locker room and like one of the players like turned you on to somebody, and then before you're like, man, I love Drake. Drake would be a good example, but like they turned you on to somebody and then you really like him?
I think the guy I can think about, and I'm not like super into him, but it was years ago. Travis Scott was probably a guy that, when Astro World came out, I was like, man, that guy's he's pretty
But
dope.
you're hearing it in the locker room first.
Yeah. And Migos, that was years ago. I wasn't really into Migos, but they came out and I was like, this is all right. But now, I mean, I feel like an old man because I listen to them like, man, y'all don't know anything, man. Y'all didn't have Tupac or Biggie. Like, these guys are just mumbling, like, and I feel like that old guy.
You're old man, get off my lawn now.
I'm like, their lyrics really don't say. I'm like, go listen to some Tupac. Go listen to Biggie. I mean, like, Jay-Z, I mean, those guys they were poets, and that's what they just look at me like, man, you're just old,
I'm a big music person, and I'm around a handful of young people that expose me to different stuff. But again, like kind of like you, a lot of the stuff I'm exposed to, I'm like, ugh, like I don't even like this. Like, and I'm pretty open to music just in general. You know,
I'm more resistant to country, like new country. My daughter will bring me. She's big into country, and she'll bring a guy up.
Who's she like?
So one guy she brought up that I have fallen in love with is Zach Bryan.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
I mean, she played a song, and I was like, this guy's kind of good. And she'd been dying to go see him live. And I was like, I mean, he's okay. I'd only heard one song. And so my wife and I saw he's playing at Stubbs. I said, hey, this is the guy that Carson likes. Let's go check him out. And we went and saw him live, and we were floored.
Where'd y'all see him live at?
At Stubbs.
Oh, at Stubbs. Yeah, that's right.
And we walked in. I thought we were walking into like 25 people. I was like, there's not going to be hardly anybody here.
You're like, nobody knows this guy.
I was like, nobody knows who this guy is. We walk in. I mean, we were the oldest people there. I mean, it's wall-to-wall college kids. I felt like I was back at UT again. And, I mean, he starts off, they know every song.
Isn't that crazy?
Everybody's singing everything. And I couldn't download them fast enough. I mean, I'm like, this guy is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So she got so mad. I called her the next day. I was like, hey, we went and saw Zach Bryan. He's pretty good. She's like, why didn't you bring me? I'm like, well, I didn't even think about it, I mean, I just was trying to take your mom out on a date. I thought this would be a quiet concert, and it wasn't. But he's a guy she brought that I'm really glad she did, that I really like. Yeah.
So, Schrader Hall is the second oldest dance hall in Texas. Was the second oldest dance hall in Texas?
Yeah.
They tore it down finally, didn't they?
They didn't tear it down, but it's no longer a live music venue. It's now like a wedding reception place.
Got it. All right. So tell me a Schrader Hall story that you can tell me that you're comfortable. That
I can remember.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the thing I tell our guy, the thing that I'm shocked with kids today, coaching in high school, is they don't have a social venue that they connect with.
Isn't that weird? It's
so weird. And
like we had the mall.
Yeah.
We had dance halls.
Yeah.
We had house parties, which I guess they have house parties.
Yeah.
Bonfires.
Yeah.
But they don't do any of that shit, huh?
No, not anymore. No, they connect on social media and, go watch a movie at somebody's house or just hang out, but they don't have a social venue that they go to. And that was the thing about Schrader that they can't grasp. I'm like, all right, we had this one place that was in the middle of nowhere, but connected all these small towns. And that's where you went to meet girls.
Everybody was going to be there.
Yeah.
Everybody knew and you knew the good dances too. You know what I mean?
Well, I told them you had to know how to dance. Because they kind of poke fun the fact that I knew how to country dance. Like, listen, if you walked into that place and you didn't know how to dance, you
ain't talking to nobody.
You ain't talking to nobody. And they're like, would you just go up and ask a girl you didn't know how to dance? I'm like, hell yeah, I did. That's how you meet girls. They don't understand that concept.
Or the concept of like, okay, so you grow up in a small school. You're tired of dating the girls in your school. You want to go date girls from another school. And the only chance you have is at these, and then you're like looking across, you're like, I wonder what school she goes to.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I tell like Schrader Hall had sections. Like I could still in my mind picture it when you walked in the door.
That ticket booth is right there.
There's ticket booth. There's Victoria.
Yeah.
Right there, right off the bat. And then you got Goliad. Goliad's that second section. And then a little down you got Cuero. And then you got the Yorktown Refugio connection. Then all the old people sat across because they had their tables with all their drinks on it.
That's right.
But like you knew if you wanted Like I know, hey, I like this girl from Refugio. She's standing right over there because there's a Refugio crew. You knew where to go to find the girl you wanted to dance with.
So like help me remember, how did we know if a girl was from another town was going? What were we calling them on the phone like at home?
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. You made the house call. You had
to get their number before you left.
And if they didn't have a home phone, you had to go through dad. You had to go through mom when you called.
Yeah.
Hey, is so and so here? Yeah, this is so and so. I'd like to talk to her. You know, there was no personal cell phone. There was no texting. There was no DMs. You had to make that direct call. But yeah, you'd meet a girl, you dance, and then you say, hey, you know, let's go on a date sometime. Let me get your number. And
you're more ballsy than me. I didn't say.
No, I mean that's how you did it. I mean,
that's how you did it. Yeah, I just didn't do it very well.
The great thing about that, and I mean, if it's a girl from your school, was a little bit more nerve-wracking asking out, because if she said no, everybody was going to know. But if you ask a girl from Victoria and she said no, I mean, nobody's going to know, you know. So if I was a little more ballsy with girls out of town, you know, go ask them to dance or ask them for their number, than I was trying to ask a girl from Goliad to go out on a date. You know?
I guess your oldest didn't get to experience Schrader Hall before it ended, huh?
We took her. Like she's been twice. So
but she went with y'all.
She went with her friends once. And then we took her the second to last concert. I think the last concert there, I didn't even know the name of the band. I thought it was like, I thought if you're going to end Schrader Hall, you call in the big guns. And they didn't do that. It was like a New Year's Eve party. And I can't tell you the name of the band that played it. But the one before was Aaron Watson. And I like Aaron Watson. You know, I'm a fan.
But I feel like when we back then, like there wasn't guys as big as Aaron Watson that played. But maybe it was different too, because like Aaron Watson actually can be big at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like he might not be able to be big like back in the day either.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think it's the changing of the times. You know, like I think the draw back then was the dancing and the social aspect of it. And then it got into the draw was to buy tickets to see a big name artist. You know, that's where Schrader evolved to. And then, I mean, because we were shocked, we went, I guess Charlie Robeson was playing, and there was literally no dance floor. You know, it was just people standing around watching Charlie Robeson, you know, and I think that's where they kind of went downhill, because people from that area that grew up in there was like, I don't want to stand around and watch a con, I want to dance.
Yeah.
You know, so the Bobby Allen Joneses and the Joel Nava and the Borders and the Rhythm of the Roads, you know, since they're no longer there, I think that's where Schrader kind of went down a little bit, because they didn't cater to, you know, what they used to be, you know.
So side note, Texas Unlimited band.
Tub?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's sister's boyfriend, shout out, his name is Scott too. Shout out Scott. He used to play in that band.
Right. There was Tub, and then there was Tab, Texas Armadillo Band. So there was Texas Unlimited Band, and there was Tab. They were always competing.
There's really, I don't even know how to explain that time of my life with those bands and like doing that.
Yeah.
Because that's something you only did in small town areas. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people experienced that, but a lot of people didn't. The rest of the United States doesn't do those kinds of things, I wouldn't think.
I can't vouch for
and
that.
have bands like that. Like, you know, these bands that would tour just that area. They would just tour that area.
Just that little round. And the versatility of the bands. Like those guys are playing.
Oh yeah, Scott was a rapper.
Yeah. They play Lump by Peaches, you know, that by Presidents of the United States, and then roll back and play some Clay Walker. You know, I mean, the knowledge of music that they have was pretty impressive. And I think you know, that's kind of lost on just like the single artist that just plays one song. I mean, I think that was the draw to that. But I think, you know, where it paid off for me was in college. So learning how to country dance.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's how I got my wife. You know, we went to it used to be called Dance Across Texas. Might be called Wild Wild West. I don't know what it is. The country place that's off of like 35 and Ben White.
I don't even know if it's a country bar anymore. Maybe it still is.
I mean, I took her there and taught her how to two-step, and she thought I was like Fred Astaire, you know. I mean, she was blown away. And girls like that, you know, like, and people take dance classes to learn to dance like that. But if you grew up in a small town and you could have that going into college, I mean, that was big. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize what kind of education I was getting at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just the education overall of just life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, I don't know, I feel like everything's amplified, you know, like, cause there's not as many people. So like knowing more people, everything feels really amplified. So when something goes wrong, everybody fucking knows about, you know what I mean? Like one of those things. And it's just like, it sucks.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what I warned my daughter about, you know, and she went to school, her freshman, sophomore year in Goliad. I said, now the thing about a small town, you do something, everybody's going to know about it. You know, you go to a big school, you do something wrong or something happens to you, you know, only a handful of people are going to know.
But she still preferred to be there, huh?
Initially, I think she saw where that small town was leading. You know, like you said, like you date or you know all the guys.
So
or
you've dated guys.
You know, yeah.
Nobody's a mystery.
but the beauty of it too is the communal aspect of it. I mean, I can still go home and see people, you know, that were my teachers or coaches or people that stayed in the town that you still have a connection with. There's good and bad for everything, you know, but I think she enjoyed that part of it of like, everybody knows what you're doing, but everybody cares about you. Like they look out for you, and you don't get that at a lot of bigger schools, you know?
I was just saying, I mean, essentially how I know you is because of everything we're fucking talking about.
There's no doubt.
Because I would go to those dances. I went to one of those dances. I met Brooke. And then Brooke knew Jared.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm hanging out with all y'all. And so like, I mean, everything you talked about is exactly like how we got to here. You know, that's crazy.
That's how you meet a ton of people from a lot of different backgrounds down there.
But just like, back to original point or something you said earlier, like kids just they don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? They're like meeting up online. That kind of sucks because it takes a lot of the authenticity of like, it's kind of like when I train people online, it's just not the same.
It's not.
You know what I mean? There's this, you know, having a meeting online, it's just not the same. Because you just can't pick up everything that's going on in the room with the person. It's just different, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, it's a lost art now, just having a personal connection with somebody that, especially in the young dating pool, you know, they don't, there's no cold calling anymore. You know, it's, you know, you gradually like through Snapchat or through DMs and Instagram, you kind of converse with a girl, and then you don't actually sometimes meet that girl until you've conversed with her till like a month, you know, and they were blown away when it sounds so antiquated to them when I explained dating during our time, you know, about how you just walk up, like in college, be at a bar, walk up to a girl. Hey, what's up?
Again, this is you. I was never that ballsy.
I find that hard to believe. I think you're very personable. I think you have.
Well, but I always wanted. I was scared of like straight up like first rejection, so I wanted to weigh in. And once I had a weigh in, I was fine. Well, I needed. I was more of a mid reliever.
We all needed a weigh in. I mean, you had to have an angle. I mean, you know, very few people can just come in with the cold call, and you know, but you know, you'd see a friend or, hey, let me buy you a drink, or, you know, find something funny, you know, to say to her. But it was you personally talking to that person and making a connection with that person in person that was relying upon you developing a relationship with that person. It wasn't you texting somebody or doing it through an unpersonal way. So
does the coach in you find yourself coaching your daughter through dating? Does that make sense?
I try not to overextend myself as far as like, because I know she's going to, and when you raise kids, you learn there's a line you can push, you know, that you don't want to get too direct with them. Just like I always act nonchalant about it. And then if she wants to come with me with a question or a piece of advice, then I'll offer it. But if I know if I've learned with her, she's going to do exactly the opposite of what I tell her if I'm very like demanding.
Who is that? Is that you or is that your wife?
That's my wife. My wife is going to do things her way.
Yeah.
You know, she's got a plan of how she wants to do it, and she's going to do it her way. And a lot of times if I say, let's do it this way, she's going to say, no, let's do it this way. So I think she's got a little bit of my wife in that. So I try to tread lightly when I talk to her about giving advice on guys and things like that, and she'll seek it. I've learned if I just kind of hang back in the weeds, she'll be like, hey, what do you think about this or that? And I think she's a little embarrassed, which, you know, being a guy, like she's going to go to her mom, I think, more about dating stuff than her dad, because she fears And I don't want her to feel that. I've told her, I don't want you to feel like I'm going to judge you on anything.
Here's what's so weird about that. Okay. Is one, we've already established that at this point, there's tension between the mother and the daughter. I think it happens in like every relationship. But then two, like you're a dude. So who do you think's more an expert on like dudes, you or your wife?
I think she's just embarrassed to tell me about,
like kissing guys
or like, anything like that. I think she feels weird telling me about it.
But like I would also feel weird kind of hearing it. Like, I'm not stupid, but like, I don't want to like put it in my face either,
I'm with you. Cause I know some families and I've been around some of that their kids are overly honest with their parents. And I feel uncomfortable with that. Like I kind of want it to have some mystery a little bit.
Well, I guess, it's different strokes for different folks, right? So if it works for your family, it's great. I mean, I don't want to know too much. Look, dude, I'm done with diapers. I'm tired of looking at my daughter's butt. I want her to be able to do our own stuff. And I know I still have some ways to go because she's barely going to go. She's going to have accidents, need me to wipe her. And I'm just done with all that. Like, I just want to be like, go back to normal.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I mean, again, I'm totally glad that like I had a daughter though. I think I would know too much about a boy and just fuck him up worse. Yeah. I feel like we're learning together.
That's the part I like about it is they're a lot more affectionate. They're more loving, I think. Like, I can tell just by all my cousins that have boys, like they don't seem to have that kind of relationship with the boys that they do with the girls, especially the dads. I feel very close with my daughters. I don't know what that would be like with the son. I feel like it's always opposite. Like the mother has a really close relationship with the son and the father has a really close relationship with the daughter. So I don't know what that dynamic would be.
Well, I think when they're the same, there's too much room for that kind of tension. You know what I mean? Let's get another whiskey. You want to know a little more whiskey?
I'm down.
Look, my brother's making me pay for half that bottle, so I'm going to get my fucking money's worth.
There you go.
You know what I mean? I don't know, and being like a new dad, I don't know what my expectation is. Like, this is what I'm hoping. I'm always hoping that we have pretty good communication, even when I become not cool, which I can't fucking imagine that I will never not be cool, but like everybody tells me I'm not. So like, I hope that like we at least have a strong communication bond, even when I'm not cool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think my wife has done a good job of like we need to sit down and have communicate expectations for our daughters. Like, this is what we expect out of you, and this is the consequence if it happens. I mean, she maps it out, and we reevaluate it the older they get. But that way the consequence is already set.
Are you good cop?
I am good cop.
And she's bad cop?
She's bad cop. But she's got on me like we both need to be the bad cop.
Well, I mean, you got to like back each other up, right?
I tried to be the bad cop.
It didn't work.
That's where it's harder when you're a dad with girls. Like it's harder, especially, my youngest being at her age, it's harder to
How old is she?
She's 7.
Okay.
But it has helped, like when something goes wrong, if you say, hey, we told you this and this is the punishment for it. We've already said it. It's not a spur of the moment deal where you're saying, okay, we're going to invoke this punishment on you because you did this. Then it seems unfair, but you've already discussed it. Like, listen, if we catch you drinking, this is the consequence for it. So then you've had that discussion with her. So it's never a surprise and you're not the asshole, and I feel like it's worked well. Like whenever our oldest daughter is great, if what she expects to happen happens, she's okay with it. But if something unexpected happened that she's not prepared for, she does not handle that well. So that's one of the great things my wife has done is sit down and like, all right, these are the behaviors we expect out of our girls and things we expect them to do. But if they don't uphold that standard of behavior, what is the consequence for that behavior? Little things like if we tell them that they get the phone for an hour and they go over the hour, the consequence is they lose their phone for the next day.
Yeah, they're responsible for their time.
And you'll be surprised at the kid, like they have an understanding of that. So when they break that rule, there's not a lot of arguing. They're like, okay, I understand. But if you do something by the seat of your pants and say, all right, you lose your phone for a week. Like, well, that's not what we agreed upon.
Right.
You know? So I think that's what I've learned. And like I said, parenting's a learn as you go type of deal. We learned that over the years. If you set an expectation and you determine a consequence for that expectation or for that punishment or whatever, that kids are pretty understanding of it if they understand it beforehand.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to like, you know, if something new happens, you need to establish a new rule. Mm-hmm. So the first time it happens, you can't like get mad at somebody because there was no rules, right?
There's no consequence.
But then once it happens, you go, okay, this is now unacceptable, right? And moving forward from this point, we will no longer be doing this, and this will be the consequence. Yeah. But I think parents expect kids to get shit right the first time.
Yeah.
And like everybody needs at least one more chance, especially when you're trying to like navigate life, you know?
Well, that's what, you know, just going back to the story I told earlier, that's what my mom did with me. Like, she had assumed I was a good kid, you know, that I didn't drink. And she had never set like a punishment for, if I catch you drinking, this is your punishment. So when they discovered that, they didn't hit me with like, we're going to ground you for a month, or you're losing your car, or you're losing your phone, or whatever. It was just like, hey, from now on, if you do this, this is the punishment. And I thought that's a better understanding of, like, I didn't flip out, you know, and it kind of, you kind of gain trust in them because you feel like they have some empathy for you. Like, all right, this is something they didn't expect to happen, and there wasn't a punishment set for it. So, you know, but I understand what the punishment will be from now on.
Right.
You know.
Okay. I said I wasn't going to ask you a football question, but it's not really football though. Okay. It's kind of a two-parter. One, what are your feelings on the NIL? And then two, maybe just, do you think it's good or bad for college football? I'm just curious because you're kind of all in it. You know what I mean?
You know, I've got such mixed feelings about it. I think players do deserve a share of the revenue. I really do. You know, for years, colleges have made a lot of money off of players' name, image, and likeness without the players being compensated. The part of me that is supportive of it, you know, is also conflicting with the traditionalist inside me that now it's a pay for play type of deal. And some of the joy of playing for a school and going to a school and having traditions at that school and having a reason to choose that school for those reasons is being circumvented by money, you know? So I mean, it's really a Pandora's box right now. I mean, that's the thing I was dealing with when I got out of it is, you know, you used to sell to the parents like your kid's going to get a great education here. They're going to have a great experience. It's a family atmosphere. We're going to develop your son as a human being and as a football player. And, you know, by the time he leaves here, he's going to have a good experience too. Okay, what do you need? You know, what's your price? You know, and it's kind of flipped the game to a point where it's not college football anymore, you know. So I don't know. That's why the answer is not easy, because I do want to provide these kids with, you know, what they deserve, which is some sort of share of the revenue, but I also want them to have some tie to the school from an emotional standpoint, you know, or a traditional standpoint. And I really tell everybody, I experienced the golden era of college football. When I was at Texas from 99 as a student assistant to, you know, all the way through Baylor to 2015, right when I got to Texas again in 2017, I think that was like the golden era of, you know, excitement of college football playoffs. There was no NIL, there was no transfer portal. Like, you went to a school and you developed kids. To now, it's the NFL in a sense. And what I struggle with that I enjoy in high school now is getting a kid as a freshman and watching that kid develop into a player as a senior. You know, just watching that transition. And now, if he's not playing as a freshman, well, I'm going to go to a different school, you know, or this school's going to give me more money. And I feel like you have you develop less personal relationships with players, and they don't have a personal experience in college. So I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I wish I did. And that's a debate that's ongoing right now. Like, they're going to work within the framework of the rules, and they're going to pay players, and it's a bidding war with every recruit. But I don't think there's a perfect answer right now.
I couldn't help but think how much this whole NIL thing just punches holes into the environment that Art Browse created. The cohesiveness, the familyness. When you start doing these NIL deals, let's not manage the fact that like somebody's getting this amount and somebody's getting this amount and people are jealous. But then like, you know, you don't like what's going on, you transfer out. You got paid to come here, you don't really want to be here. Yeah. And so to create the environment that he created and that magic that happens, you can't do it if these kids are getting paid like that, because now it's just professional sports. Yeah. You know, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's not a personal experience anymore. It's a professional experience, you know, and, you know, a lot of the teams in the NFL, you know, aside from teams that do develop a culture, and I mean, even with that, you know, you're locked into contracts and things like that in the NFL. You don't have that in college. Like, I think Mike Gundy had kind of a good thought of, you sign kids and then you tie their NIL money to how long they stay at the school. So, you know, you tell a kid, hey, we're going to pay you, you know, X amount of money if you stay here 1 year, X amount of money if you stay here 2 years, 3 years versus 4 years, to entice them to stay at a place because they're not locked into it. You know, they could go there and take money and then leave and go somewhere else. But if you give them that incentive, then maybe they'll stay there the 4 years. And then where it has flipped is, as a coach, you can't be as demanding, and you have to create an environment that's a little more inviting because you want to keep that player there. So some players,
and the boosters want you to keep that player.
Yeah, they do. But I had this discussion with some of our players today, that people holding you accountable and people holding you to a standard, you should appreciate people, because it means they love you. It means they expect something out of you, and they see something more out of yourself than you see. So it's not wrong if somebody's being hard on you. But a lot of college athletes nowadays struggle with that. Like, if they get any kind of negative feedback or criticism, it's like, screw that guy, I'm going to go somewhere else. It's like, no, man, this guy sees something that you don't see in yourself, and he's trying to motivate you to get you to a different level. And I feel like when it gets hard now, players just move. They just move on. Like, this is getting hard. This guy's being a little too demanding on me of my time and of what he expects out of me. I want to go somewhere where the guy's just going to coddle me and tell me how good I am and how good a player I am.
You remember I was telling you about those walk-ons?
Yeah.
Well, they were there when Beanie Wiley was there.
Yeah.
And so I was asking for stories, and those stories are rough. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't curse, but I definitely would he was not putting up with shit. Yeah. And like, that's what they love the most about their experience.
That's what you remember.
Being walk-ons, because of that, the roughing, the making the diamonds, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. The pressure.
I talked to our players today about that, about, you know, the guys that I not resented, but the guys that were hard on me as coaches. Like, at the time, I probably resented them. Like, man, why is this guy getting on my case so much? But those are the guys that I'll pick up the phone and say, hey, I need some help with something. What do you think? Those are the guys I ask advice for, because I know they cared about me. You know, I always say, if I stop coaching you, if I'm not being hard on you, it means I don't care about you anymore. Yeah. You know, if I care about you, I'm going to be hard on you because I see something in you that maybe you don't see in yourself. And along with Benny Wiley, the whole reason we were successful at Baylor, or one of the main reasons, was our strength coach, Kaz Kazadi. He's at TCU now. You know, look at the success they're having. Right. Playing the national championship. It's not a secret that guy was Art's mental coach for our players. And I still have it recorded on my phone. He gave a recruiting speech to a group of parents in our weight room. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. And he talked about pressure. And he said, if you come here and you don't embrace pressure, then you cannot play here. And he said, everything great in life has come because of pressure. He goes, you heard Robert Griffin say it when he accepted the Heisman. No pressure, no diamonds.
Right.
But he took it even further and said he had mamas crying, and I won't give you the whole speech, but one aspect of it he talked about, he said, think about your mom. Everything great in life comes out of pain. Your mom carried you in her womb for 9 months. Probably the most uncomfortable thing. Sacrificed 9 months out of her life. Everything she ate, the rest, everything was devoted to your development. And then she had to go through labor and bring you out of her body into this world through the most excruciating pain you could possibly ever go to. And the only thing that she did that for was love. And she was like, pain sometimes is because of love. And if you can't go through that, and you can't appreciate that, then you can't play. And I'm not talking about every mom.
Oh, I bet.
There ain't a dry eye in that weight room. And I still have recorded. I was sitting back like, God dang. And that's what people don't realize now. They like to accomplish anything. Like you have to go through struggle. And really that's what you miss the most in life. A lot of times I read books about accomplished people. They're not talking about where they're at right now and the enjoyment of, having their success or they talk about
the journey.
Like, man, I remember when I first started and I had to go through this and I had to start my business or I had to go through this and then my failures and I overcame that failure. I think that's where the joy is. And I fear that players are not embracing that enough. And when things get hard, they just want to move on. And then they're never developing that muscle of perseverance,
You have met my daughter.
I have.
I don't think she's going to be a great athlete. I think she's going to probably be more entertaining, singing music.
Yeah.
But I do want her to play sports for those exact reasons.
Yeah.
Teamwork, coaching, tough situations, adversity. Like you don't have I don't want her to hate it. If she absolutely hates it, we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to coach her to go like, hey, this is important for you just in general. Like you're going to learn a lot from this and it's going to benefit you in doing music and doing dance, of doing art. Like it'll benefit you in other ways that's going to make you stronger.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what would you call it? The unfortunate byproduct of like people like not being engaged in sports or not wanting to do sports of like they're losing that part that can only really happen inside sports, right?
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing, and a piece of advice, and this is from
I'll take all the girl advice you got, buddy.
My wife gave me this, and I use it, in coaching. Is there was a psychology study that talked about like with your kids, you never praise the outcome of something. You never tell a kid that they're good or they're smart. But if they accomplish something, you tell them, man, you really worked hard for that. I'm really proud of how hard you worked for that. And what that develops inside of them is the process aspect of it. And they value the effort that they put into it and they don't attach it to the outcome. And, when you talk about parenting, like our oldest daughter, she's very, very smart and she was very talented in sports as a young age. And I, as a fail would always compliment that. Like, man, you played great today. You scored 3 goals.
That's what you feel like you're supposed to do.
That's what you feel like you're supposed to do. And so what happens is when they're not good at something or when they struggle, they get frustrated because like, I've been told I'm good. I've been told that I'm smart and I'm struggling with this concept and this, I don't like this. I'm not going to do this thing anymore. Where if you praise the hard work and the struggle of it, like, man, you overcame a lot to do that. Then when something becomes hard and they're not good at it right away, then they persevere through it. And my wife, was reading a book on it and told me, I was like, it's bullshit, But then I watch our youngest daughter, like that is her to a T. She said, just try it with our youngest. And we do, like, she'll go out, soccer game, score 4 goals. And the only thing I'll say to her is, man, you played hard today. I really am proud of how hard you played and the effort you put into the game. You ran all over the field. You worked really hard. You practiced hard for this. And then you watch her in other things, like she battles through hard things. Something like if there's a math problem she's struggling with, she won't stop until she figures it out. So I've seen it in practice, and I'm starting to use it with players. I was going to say,
did you start using it with your players?
I started using it with players. Like, we're so outcome driven, wins and losses, successes and failures, that I started focusing on like you need to, the process of overcoming struggles is way more important than what happens on the tail end of that. And I heard some guy say it one time, winners never talk about winning. They talk about
getting better.
The
process.
Yeah, the process of it. They never talk about, like, it's almost like, you know,
winning is the expectation.
Yeah, the expectation.
You don't,
but you don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's expected. I'm going to do this to get to that.
Because I'm doing this, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You focus on that formula of what I'm doing in the middle is going to end up giving me the outcome I want. Not like, if I don't get the outcome, then I don't want to do this.
It's kind of like, I've probably said this before. The best part of doing the podcast is right now. The making the videos and putting on the internet, I mean, that's like work. This is what's so awesome, because I get to like have a conversation with somebody, connect with an old friend I haven't seen in a long time. I get to do like this really cool thing. This is the best part of like just being with a human and like talking to them. Like, once like all the other shit's like, that's just the end product of what's so great about what I'm doing, or what I like about what I'm doing, I should say.
I agree. I mean, I think, you know, learning from books is one thing, but learning from people is another. Like,
well, but you can learn everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Like, the weird part about it is like I'm just now getting on this trend, but like, you can learn so much on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, if anything you can think of, someone's already put a video how to do whatever on YouTube. And if they haven't, well, then put yours out there. You know what I mean? Like, but like, it's like everything I ever look up is on there. So you can learn from people and things all over the place.
Yeah, I'm a product of that. I've installed a garbage disposal, and I installed a toilet, which I would never be able to do. Looked up on YouTube. We needed to put a new toilet in. I called the plumber. How much is this? Not going to pay that. So I said, I'm going to do it myself. Pull up YouTube, watch the tutorial video on it. Boom, toilet installed. Save us like $800. So I agree. I mean, you can learn how to do anything.
Well,
you know?
I had a cat come on the podcast. He got a master's. No. He got his degree at UT in like engineering.
Yeah.
And didn't like the fact that his job was like behind like he wanted stuff he could show to his kids. Like, this is what I do for a living. So then he taught himself how to be a developer on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then became a developer and got a job with Adobe. And I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Like, you had this like badass degree, and like YouTube is what's really paying your bills.
Oh, wait, listen. My 7-year-old watches the shit out of Sniper Wolf, and I can't even.
What the hell is Sniper Wolf?
Oh man. Well, wait. You don't have young kids. It's a girl. She's on YouTube, and all she does is like comment on other videos.
Oh, so it's one of those.
But she has like 33 million subscribers. Like, I think she's one of the like most well-paid influencers or YouTube developers.
That's just wild, isn't it?
It's crazy, because she was talking about her, and I was like, well, show me some of her stuff. And she pulled it up, and literally it's just her commenting on other videos and making humorous comments about it, and just blown up.
You know, the dude I'm fascinated with is fucking Blimpy.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, so he's basically like this generation's Mr. Rogers.
Oh, okay.
Right? But he started on YouTube. When you look at his first videos, they're kind of shit.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into this multi-billion-dollar like conglomerate that I think he sold off, and he's not even Blimpy anymore. That cat like retired from like being Blimpy, and some other dude like took over. And I was like, man, that is wild. Like, I think sometimes like with the podcast, I'm like, at least I'm learning how to navigate the internet. Yeah. Because it's a pretty good possibility that my daughter could have a job on the internet. Yeah. So why not learn it so I can help her with her career at a minimum, if this is nothing, you know? Yeah. I don't know.
That's where it's going to, you know.
I got to get out of that old head mentality though. Like my mentality is like, you can't make any money on the internet, but like plenty of people are doing it.
They're doing it.
Yeah. So it's like, it's being done, you know?
Yeah.
This last segment is brought to you by HeyJustBe.com. I believe that achieving balance in the mental, physical, and metaphysical aspects of your purpose by incorporating learning, serving, and creating can transform your life into one that you truly enjoy living. Want to know more? Go to www.heyjustbe.com. So how I used to like wrap this thing up is I usually ask people like, hey, how you take care of yourself so you can take care of everybody else. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say you work out.
I do.
Yeah, because I mean, you're surrounded by weight rooms constantly.
Yeah, that's
I mean, if you didn't work out, it'd be kind of insulting.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you traditional lift guy? Are you doing old man workouts? What are you doing?
I do a little bit of everything. You know, I got into running for a while. I did a marathon.
Ooh, I haven't even done a marathon.
A bunch of half marathons. But then, you know, I've gotten, you know, I lift regularly, and then I'm starting to get more back into heavy lifting. I was more like, you know, combo lifts, like power cleans and, you know, power shrugs and, you know, all the kind of almost CrossFit type stuff. But I don't know if you watched the documentary, the Arnold documentary.
Like
on Netflix about Arnold Schwarzenegger.
But not like Pumping Iron.
No, there's a documentary, 3-part. One's about body building, one's about him as an actor, and one's about him as running for
I'll watch that.
Yeah, it's awesome, by the way. So I watched that. I kind of got back into watching the bodybuilding aspect of it, of the heavy lifting that he did. So I kind of got back into that. But I try to vary it just so I don't get bored. Like, I feel like if you get into a routine, like you're just going to get bored. The great thing is I have like at home, I have a bunch of free weights. So if I want to go out to the garage and just knock out power cleans or squats or anything like that, I can do it. But I like the way you phrase it about taking care of yourself. Because I do really feel like I feel better about myself when I take care of myself. And it's almost like equated to when you're on an airplane and they say, you know, if something happens and the oxygen mask goes down, put yours on first before you try to help somebody else. So I feel as a parent or as a person, like I better take care of my own, get myself right before I try to help anybody else.
Well, like every day I'm trying to bring 100% of myself to my daughter and to my family and to my clients, right? And if I'm not doing things that recharge me as a person, how can I bring 100% of myself? So I have to make that time.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take advantage of it and be selfish about it, but I have to make that time. No. And I think a lot of people just don't make the time to take care of themselves. And so then it's just like everything that they're doing just feels that much more heavy and dragging, you know?
My wife is probably the best example of that. She wakes up at 4 a.m. every morning and she does workouts in the morning. And where it's benefited is it improves her mood, but our daughters will see her work out or know that she works out.
That example, right?
And a great example. And our 7-year-old will jump in and do burpees and all kinds of stuff because that's just what she thinks you're supposed to do. Right. You know, you're setting an example for your kids. So I try to do that with our kids too, of like, I want them to see me being active. So they think that's like a part of life. You know, you're supposed to take care of yourself and be active and be healthy, you know?
So what else do you, are you a book reader?
I do, but I'm not a great book reader. Like something's got to really like take hold of me. I've read a lot of half books.
Do you do audiobooks or you read?
I do audiobooks. Like, and when I was at, when I was commuting, when I worked at Texas and I was living up here in Round Rock and I had about a 30 to 45 minute commute. I was a big audiobook guy because that's a great thing to listen to on the way to work. But I'm not an e-reader. Like I cannot read off a tablet. I'm tactile. Like I've got to have paper. But I will read probably 2 or 3 books a year because I start to read and then I get distracted by something. I come back to it. But I recently read a book called Beartown. Okay. Great book. So my wife turned me on to it.
Is it a fictional book or is it a?
It's a fictional book. I'm normally like biography, like, you know, true story type of things, but it's about a hockey team in Sweden and like the culture of it.
I feel like I'm familiar with this for some reason.
It's popular. My wife turned me on to it. She read it and she's like, you got to read this book because the relationship of the coach in the book to the wife, my wife is a surgeon. and this guy's a coach. And in the book, he's a coach and she's a lawyer. And it's the balance of their relationship with her being a professional and him being a coach. And she's like, their relationship just mirrors ours to a T. You got to read this. It's unbelievable. And so I read it, and it's enjoyable. It's a series. She's on the second book now, and I'm fixing to start. But it was pretty good. My favorite book is probably Fountainhead by Anne Ryan. I can read that book over and over again.
How many times you read
it? 3 times.
Damn.
But it is a long book. But it's one of my, I mean, just cover to cover, like I've got stuff highlighted, dog-eared, everything. There's so many great points in that book that I really enjoy.
What else you doing? What are you doing when you're not like doing football? Like you do a lot of football. What do you?
I love to travel. I mean, we're our family. We travel a lot. My wife is a big traveler, so like we'll go. We just got back from Yosemite and the Sequoias, but every year we take kind of a big trip. We'll go over. We'll take a trip to the Caribbean. Every year we try to alternate it. Some national park one year,
beach,
and then beach the next year. And now we want to go. Now that our girls are older, we're going to start going overseas. Like we're talking about going to Africa and doing some stuff in Europe and things like that.
I can make a recommendation.
Okay.
One of my mentor moved to Budapest. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's easy to get there. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
I'm looking
Great place.
at that because well, that's where I want to spend money. Like to me, I never want to shop for clothes or anything. Like if I'm going to save up, it's going to be to go and travel because I'm big on experiences. Like I like just enjoying like experiences,
Well, I feel like that should be a natural progression as we get older, but it's so easy to lean into kind of like just comfort, being comfortable.
It wasn't for me growing up. Like,
did your parents travel?
No.
My parents didn't either.
No, my stepdad has a fear of flying. My mom.
Your stepdad was John Madden?
Yeah. And my mom does not like to travel. Like I never went out of Mexico. Like we go to Mexico.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I never went outside the United States until my honeymoon. And we went to Aruba. That was the first place I visited that was outside the United States. And I was, 25 years old.
The first time I went outside the United States, I must have been in my 30s. It was China. But my parents didn't. I just think people from small towns back then didn't travel because they couldn't afford it and it wasn't affordable.
But see, that's the thing. Like,
did y'all take a bunch of did y'all do a lot of car trips?
We took a road trip to Washington D.C. one year. We took a road trip to the Grand Canyon, and that was cool. But my thought with that is like I thought the same thing, but if it depends on what you spend your money on.
Right.
Like we devote like our savings to travel. Like we're not going to eat out a bunch. We're not going to do this, but we're going to try to make sure that we put that money toward traveling. And I think like, I don't think it was lack of money. I think it was lack of interest or just lack of knowledge of travel when I was growing up.
Yeah. Well, and I just think that like, just in the last like 20 years, travel has gotten so much easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it just like my mom didn't fly on a plane. Like from the time she was like 18 until she was like 60 something, she didn't fly on a plane, and she flew on a plane for like the first time in however many years. Yeah. It was like, I was like, oh shit, like how am I gonna get her like back from the airport?
Yeah.
Well, did you have a good time?
I did.
Was this everything you expected and more?
It was, I just expected a conversation with a good friend, and that's exactly what I got.
Yeah. Well, man, I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, you can push that mic out. Give me a big old hug.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.